When I think about Minnesota African United, I think
just that platform where like it kind of brings everyone together.
A conduit, for professionals to
learn, educate, and discuss problems and possibly solution for all Africans to improve the life of Africans in Minnesota.
To me, is that umbrella organization where I believe every African diaspora in Minnesota should belong to.
Minnesota African United seeks to build a bridge between African and the diaspora and African living on the continent to create a marketplace where goods and services can be traded globally.
There are all kinds of professional development opportunities. African immigrants in the state of Minnesota, are provided opportunity to be, players, in the economic activities of the state.
If you have the commitment to empower your community, then this is a place for you.
In thriving for the welfare of all Africans within Minnesota, MAU has established 10 working committees with people that are passionate and working around the clock on all issues pertaining to Africa. If your subject of interest is not listed, join us so we can create a committee around your interest.
People like me and you trying to see how we can help and grow ourselves. Remember, if you're not at the table, you're in the menu.
We can decolonize our mind, or at least get that opportunity to see one another not just as West African or East African or Southern Africa, but as African together, trying to solve problem with African solution.
Like the African proverb goes, like you go farther together in order to empower like the whole community to basically rise up.
Welcome everyone. And thank you for attending our webinar this morning. This afternoon in the country of Malawi and in the great country of Cameroon, continent of Africa. Welcome to all our speakers, our panelists, and our keynote speaker. My name is Basil Ajuo, and I am the Chief Executive Officer for Minnesota Africans United, also known as MAU. MAU was founded in 2017, and we have been growing every year since then. We are a coalition and statewide organization for all African immigrants in Minnesota. We represent Africans coming from over 54 African countries, with over 350 African immigrants living here in Minnesota. Today, MAU is excited to host our first webinar of 2022, focused on expanding access to electricity in our community. We are excited to have our keynote speakers with us today. Commissioner Sieben from the Department of Public Utilities Commission. Her Excellency Dr. Joyce Banda, former President of Malawi. And we are also honored to partner and hear from leading companies in the energy sector, which include Power Africa, Minnesota Public Utilities Commission, Global Minnesota, Prosper Africa, U.S. Commercial Services, Bountifield International, Verterra Energy Incorporated, Asia Direct Resource, Exim Bank, and LEMA Company. Today we will discuss the different forms of energy and how they improve lives, as in the sectors of agriculture, healthcare, and education in Minnesota and Africa. We will discuss the challenges and trade investment opportunities for solar power in Africa. We will also hear from financial experts who will share resources with us today. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Katie Sieben, Commissioner for Department of Public Utilities. Katie has served as Minnesota Public Utility Commission since January of 2017. In April 2019, she was appointed to serve as chair of the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission by Governor Tim Walz and Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan. Katie previously served as Minnesota legislator, representing a district southeast of the Twin Cities and along the Mississippi River. In her 14 years in the House and Senate, Katie championed causes related to the environment, public education, and infrastructure. Now is my time to welcome Katie Sieben. Welcome, Katie.
Thank you so much, Basil. It's so nice to be with you virtually, and I'm very honored to share a stage with these other distinguished speakers. As Basil said, I'm the chair and one of 5 members on the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission. And prior to joining the commission, I was a state legislator, which led me to teaching a master's level class at Metropolitan State University here in St. Paul. And there I was very honored to have Basil as a student who graciously invited me to speak today. Well, the topic of the workshop today is of deep interest to me personally. I'm going to have little direct insight into how to bring more renewable energy projects to Africa, but perhaps I can share my experiences on the PUC, and some of those may help contribute to your learnings and understanding of how a governmental regulatory body can influence the deployment of clean energy resources and help lead to a more decarbonized grid that provides reliable service. But first, I would like to be sure to thank you for your work and encourage the continued collaboration, cooperation, and information sharing that's central to this conference. It's only through building partnerships and relationships that we're going to be able to meet the significant problems facing our world. While countries like the United States have a moral obligation to reduce pollutants that have led to climate change, since our country is a leading greenhouse gas emitter, we also have a moral obligation to do what we can to provide clean, low-cost electricity to more people in the world. The Minnesota Public Utilities Commission is a regulatory body that is making great things happen in Minnesota. We're at the forefront of the transformation of the energy industry. And perhaps even more importantly, we're working cooperatively with policymakers to implement a clean energy transition that's literally powering growth, reliable service, and maintaining great value for ratepayers. In fact, bills that our customers pay are lower than the national average. And this is partially because our state has prioritized conservation. Last year, the state, with Governor Walz's leadership, passed the nation-leading Energy Optimization and Conservation Act, which will double down on conservation and build on the 47,000 state clean energy jobs that help Minnesotans use less power, lower bills, and reduce pollutants. In Minnesota, we're fortunate to have an abundance of natural resources, including some of the best wind resources in the country, and great solar resources as well. In 2020, renewable energy became the #1 source of electricity generation in Minnesota for the first time, and we're continuing to build on that. The Commission rate regulates the state's investor-owned electric and gas utilities and one cooperative that has opted into rate regulation. We also cite and permit large energy facilities. We have oversight over, or limited oversight over telephone service, but not internet service. We work hard to ensure a robust participatory permitting process so that developers and utilities can build the needed generation to deliver reliable power, and local communities benefit from this generation, which is replacing fossil generation sources. As older generators reach the end of their useful lives and utilities set their own emission goals or are directed by policymakers or us to replace it with new renewable energy. In 2020, newly built power plants totaled 588 megawatts of capacity, and all of it was renewable generation. There's a proceeding in front of the Commission right now that, if approved and implemented, will lower emissions by 86% by 2030 for the state's largest electric utility. We're making great progress when it comes to carbon emissions, and we're doing so while relying heavily on the deployment of renewable energy like solar, wind, and battery, and emerging technologies. When the COVID pandemic began, the Commission first requested and then ordered the state's electric and natural gas utilities to not disconnect customers because of the pandemic. We also ordered a suspension of negative reporting, late payment fees, and more flexible payment plans. And with the support of low-income advocates and the utilities, these measures were agreed to. Now, as winter turns to spring and we approach the end of what we call the cold weather season, our attention turns to how to ease customers back into payment plans while also accelerating assistance for low-income heating. But when the COVID pandemic hit, it led to a dramatic loss of clean energy jobs across the country and an estimated loss of 11,000 clean energy jobs in Minnesota alone. The Commission, knowing that the energy sector represents 1/6 of our state's economy, understood that the state's energy sector needed a boost. The Commission requested that utilities accelerate investment in clean energy projects that would spur economic development, lower rates, reduce emissions, and create jobs. The utilities responded, and the Commission has permitted clean energy projects that are helping to revitalize communities. We've asked the utilities to report on the number of direct and indirect jobs created, the reduction in emissions, and the use of women, minority, and veteran-owned businesses in their workforce. Here are two examples. Xcel Energy is now in the process of repowering 6 wind projects across greater Minnesota. The repowering will result in over 800 new jobs, annual property tax revenue of roughly $4 million per year, and annual landowner payments of roughly $6 million per year. And this will save ratepayers an estimated $160 million. Secondly, in northern Minnesota, the Duluth, Laskin, and Sylvan solar projects were approved by Minnesota Power, which is headquartered in Duluth. The company is building 3 solar facilities totaling 21 megawatts of capacity. Using highly skilled labor, they're contracting with minority-owned businesses and using locally manufactured solar panels. And importantly, there was extensive and robust community support for these 3 solar projects. Well, the COVID recovery dockets have led to an innovative approach to our normal regulatory work. There are other exciting projects in development stages as well. The Commission is carefully tracking the development and growth of renewable fuels such as hydrogen and renewable natural gas. And we recently approved the first tariff for RNG that will result in future pilot programs incorporating biofuels and emerging technologies. As regulators, we're increasingly being asked to decide policy issues and are weighing different factors. How to ensure robust public participation and stakeholder input while fast-tracking the regulatory process. We've been taking steps to ensure top ratepayer value and drive investment in these critical areas and speed up the regulatory process to have the greatest impact as soon as possible to help aid in the state's recovery from the pandemic. As part of this, we have asked utilities to report on information they haven't always provided. And I think that's an important takeaway. How can we constantly look to speed up our commission processes or procedures while ensuring robust stakeholder participation? Of these recovery projects, we'll gather data on minority-owned business spending for the first time. Can that information help improve the use of diverse contractors and suppliers in the utility supply chain? I think it will, because we've seen in Minnesota that what gets measured improves. Beginning in 2017, the Commission asked renewable energy developers to report on the data of the workforce they were using. Thanks to the advocacy of labor unions, we began to ask developers to report on the workforces that are building large projects. We know that clean energy development can and does create high quality careers that help workers, local businesses, and communities. The creation of these jobs often helps smooth out concern over the impact of a new facility in the community. And this makes sense, of course. If local governments, tribal nations, farmers, families, schools, and businesses see the benefit of a new project, they're more likely to be enthusiastic supporters of it. This helps when a local developer has done the work and gained the support of the community when it comes time to permit the project. And the impact of hiring locally makes it easier for us to weigh that consideration when considering the socioeconomic impacts of a project on the state, as we are directed to do by statute. Since we began requiring quarterly reporting on the use of local labor, defined as people who live within 150 miles of a project, we've seen a significant shift in the percentage of local workers hired. Recent wind project labor reports are showing a dramatic increase in the use of local labor. What was once below 20% is now showing local labor rates of above 60%. This has resulted in a better trained workforce in many areas of the state and encouraged the development of worker training programs that have led to new pathways. As I said earlier, I think what gets measured improves. So can the Commission translate that collection of data metrics around diversity into other proceedings? That remains to be seen, but I think we have a good model and an instructive lesson. The Commission undertook a robust stakeholder process to discuss ways in which the energy sector could diversify. The results of that stakeholder group and the subsequent report have been critically important as the Commission considers how to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in our COVID recovery dockets and others, and what we can do collectively to create a more equitable society. The results of this group also helped inform a new program that's being rolled out by Xcel Energy, the state's largest electric investor-owned utility. Xcel is going to work with the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development and others on a pilot that will train hundreds of women and members of the BIPOC communities to work in the clean energy sector. Some of the workers will be trained at the newly proposed Becker Solar Farm, which will be the state's largest utility solar project that will be replacing a coal facility. It's projects like these that are part of our collective future, one that invests in renewable energy, a stronger, more distributed and resilient grid, and one that lifts up workers and BIPOC communities who have been disproportionately carrying the energy burden for too long. There's much more work to be done in Minnesota and across the world. I look forward to partnering with many of you on projects like this in the future, and I wish you all the very best success in the years to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Katie Sieben, for inspiring us with what you've been able to accomplish, but giving us a lot of ideas about how regulatory frameworks can move us towards that sustainable, resilient, and more equitable future. Thank you so much for kicking us off with that great message. And please give our thanks to our governor who's helping to take this process forward. My name is Mark Ritchie. I have the honor of serving as president of Global Minnesota and the great privilege of being able to partner with Minnesota Africans United on a number of different topics and occasions where we're focusing on how do we connect Minnesotans to the world and the world to Minnesota. And in that process, this topic of today, how do we find ways to take power, electrical power generation to a higher level of conversation, to a higher level of connectivity. And so I want to congratulate Basil and the whole team at MAU for making this topic a high priority and bringing us all together today. I have the honor of introducing our keynote speaker for the day, Her Excellency Dr. Joyce Banda, who joins us as one of the true inspirational leaders from the grassroots throughout her career in politics and philanthropy and in the business community. Dr. Banda has always put forth the vision of making things better for everybody. Women and children sometimes is the focus, the entire community sometimes the focus. But this focus has taken her into the international arena. Forbes magazine has called her one of the 40 most powerful women on the planet. That is good news for the planet, and it's my great honor to welcome you, Dr. Banda, to the floor. Take the floor, it's yours.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I would like to thank the leadership of the Minnesota Africa Unite for inviting me to be part of this very important discussion. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm of the view that this is the most appropriate time for us as a global community to have this discussion. Why? Because I feel that Africa has great potential for investment in the energy sector across all segments, namely generation, distribution, and application for agricultural production and value addition. In this presentation, I will mainly focus on the case of Malawi. Malawi has made significant gains in electrification over the last 5 years, with the number of new connections growing by an average of 11.5% per year. The government of Malawi has set a goal of achieving 80% electrification by 2035. Our government has aligned its national electrification plan with the Malawi Growth and Development Strategy. This is in recognition of the fact that electricity access is a key driver of inclusive economic growth, the creation of jobs, and boosting livelihoods for millions of Malawians. But the challenge that Malawi and many African countries, including Cameroon, face in order to harness these economic benefits of electrification is to provide access to electricity to rural masses that is both affordable and reliable to small businesses, households, schools, and health centers. Allow me to share a story about the health centers. In the year 2009, I was the Goodwill Ambassador for Maternal Health and was going around in hospitals visiting women giving birth. And in this particular hospital, 47 kilometers for the referral hospital, a woman traveled throughout the day to go and give birth. And in that hospital, they had to bring a candle so that if labor intensifies at night and they give birth in the night, they would have a candle to ensure that the baby is born with light on. Unfortunately, this woman did not have the 50 cents that she required, and the baby was born in the night. I arrived the following day, I was informed one baby was born last night, And I rushed off to the woman to congratulate her, and I found her in tears. She told me, Ma'am Banda, I don't have a baby. My baby died last night. And when the nurse gave me a report that giving birth in the dark, because there was no electricity, because there was no candle, the baby had its cord around the neck. So in the process of giving birth, they actually strangled this poor baby. Here's a woman in the village who doesn't even know her rights, that she can sue for losing a baby in that way. So for us here in Africa, access to electricity is critical, because 8 weeks later, a private sector company helped me to go back there and install electricity. So there are some simple actions that we can take as society, as private sector, as company, as global community, to make sure that this unnecessary death of our women and babies doesn't happen. There needs to be also parallel investors in fundamental portable technologies that can accelerate value addition in small village production centers. These technologies will drastically decrease costs in distributing renewable energy within the modern integrated energy system. Those are systems that provide reliable and resilient access that offer grid-like power and can open new opportunities across the agricultural, industrial, and the small business sectors. Today, Malawi offers an unprecedented opportunity to unleash the full potential of distributing renewable electrification in a way that builds a sustainable and integrated energy system at the lowest cost possible. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the limited access currently existing in Malawi is as a result of lack of private sector independent energy producers. These producers can offer affordable, reliable, and speed of provision of power, lack of which today continues to be barriers to achieving universal electrification. I believe that these discussions today provide the starting point in conversations that can allow investors in energy to work together with the government of Malawi and the many other partners and actors who believe that in this mission to provide in-country technical assistance aimed at developing, refining, and implementing an integrated electrification strategy for Malawi is possible. This would include working with our key public sector stakeholders, particularly Malawi Energy Regulatory Authority, MERA, to establish a regulatory framework and design that framework to support the integration into grid of those other players in the energy sector. This would increase agricultural and small and macro enterprise, SME productivity. During my development work in the rural areas, I have found that last mile electrification projects are most effective when combined with investments in agriculture and related SME sectors. In countries like Malawi, where agriculture accounts for 80% of export earnings and 85% of employment, it is very critical that investment in energy sector should target such people in order to transform their lives. In addition, 97% of businesses in Malawi are classified as SMEs, and many of them currently rely on diesel generators. Therefore, any capital invested in electricity has potential to increase the penetration of affordable and energy-efficient productive appliances to SMEs. We could also support investment in new business models that improve agricultural productivity, focused on areas such as irrigation, cold storage, agro-processing, and value addition. Recently, the Rockefeller Foundation has identified Malawi as one of the 8 African nations in a Pan-African investment partnership in innovations and partnership in distributed renewable energy. Malawi and many other African nations are in need of such partnerships, as these may improve harmonization of technical expertise, capital, and local knowledge. But what are the main challenges? Malawi is that to me, these challenges also become opportunities. Malawi's power sector is one of the most severely constrained in sub-Saharan Africa. Less than 10% of the population of 18 million is connected to the electrical grid. For the 80% of the people living in rural areas, access to electricity is less than 1%. The total installed capacity for power generation in the interconnected grid of Malawi, operated by Electricity Supply Corporation of Malawi, ESCOM, is approximately 342 megawatts, of which 351 is the hydropower and 11 megawatts is reciprocal engines, diesel sets. Some of grid installations exist, but are very few. With the majority of Malawi's hydropower generation derived from the Shire River, located in southern Lake Malawi, the hydrology of the river determines, to a great extent, the available output of electricity at any time. In fact, this past week, we experienced what we are calling Cyclone Anna, and those same rivers where our hydroelectric equipment is installed were flooded, and Malawi had to go without water for 5 days. Estimates indicate that shortage of capacity frequently exceeds 60% megawatts, or over 17% of peak demand in Malawi. With no reserve margin and a stressed system, the reliability and quality of electricity supply is poor. Malawi depends on domestic generation, as there are currently no significant interconnections to neighboring countries. To that effect, considerable investment in new infrastructure, particularly alternative infrastructure, is necessary to improve security and the regularity in supply and meet the ever-growing demand. Hydroelectricity, fossil fuels, and biomass are the most used energy sources in Malawi. Therefore, alternative infrastructure opportunities exist in the following areas: hydro generation, solar energy, wind energy, thermal power plants, biomass stoves, biogas, and renewable power generation. And if I may mention that we have huge deposits of gas in Malawi waiting to be exploited. According to Malawi Integrated Resource Plan, ESCOM aims to supply electricity to close to 30% of the population by 2030. To meet the growing demand, new generation capacity needs to be integrated into the grid in an average annual basis of 157 megawatts. The RRP specifically mentions plans to add 650 megawatts of new installed capacity by 2032, including 165 megawatts of solar, 60 megawatts of wind, 23 megawatts of hydro, 50 megawatts of fuel oil, and 250 megawatts of coal, and 150 megawatts of biomass. This, to me, is an opportunity. In fact, a huge opportunity for partners and actors, including our brothers and sisters in Minnesota, to explore independent electricity generation opportunities through power purchase agreements and other possible outsourcing opportunities with our power generation and distribution companies. In the longer term, additional hydropower, solar, geothermal, and biomass projects provide other potential opportunities. Generation projects in Malawi are expected to benefit from possible trading and export opportunities when cross-border transmission projects are in place with our neighbors, Mozambique, Tanzania, and Zambia. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, opportunities also exist for Minnesota-based suppliers of household-level solar products. The use of small-scale household solar units and the accompanying storage options is growing at 90% of Malawians are not connected to the grid. Malawi is ready for business. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the opportunity to share our story.
Dr. Banda, thank you so very much for your remarks. You gave us so much in terms of insights into the power issue and in your country and in Africa in general, recommendations and the opportunities that are there. I was very moved by your examples of how the issue we're dealing with today impacts citizens just on their everyday lives. That's so important to keep in mind. We see it from above often, and this is something that's so important to the citizens of your country and to Africa. So thank you so much, and thank you for all you're doing in so many areas around the world. What the Joyce Banda Foundation is doing, it's been really an honor to have you speak to us today. So thank you so much, and Godspeed in all you do.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Dr. Banda. Thank you so much. My name is Thomas Hanson. I'm the chair of the Minnesota Committee on Foreign Relations and Diplomat in Residence at the University of Minnesota. And it's my honor now to introduce our next speaker, who is Abbie Laugtug, who has a very important position as private sector team lead with Power Africa, a very important institution, a really large, extensive network that spans government, private sector, many partners on the ground. And Abbie has so much experience in this area and is now the main person sort of representing this large network in the private sector, making the connections. And so, Abbie, thank you so much for joining us. We're looking forward to your remarks, and the floor is yours.
Great, thanks. Thanks for the great introduction. And I'm Abbie Laugtug. I'm with the Power Africa Private Sector Engagement Team. And I wanted to thank Basil for pulling this event together. It actually is a real honor to participate in a panel with the star power of former President, Dr. Joyce Banda. And I couldn't agree more with everything she said. And exactly what she outlined are a lot of the areas where Power Africa works. We were involved in Malawi in the hydro project with ESCOM in the regulatory environment. So it's really neat to hear about the impact of that work. And I'm also super excited to be here today because actually I'm born and raised in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I never would have believed in a million years that I'd be working for Power Africa based out of Washington, D.C., but because I started my career as a fledgling energy lobbyist back at the Minnesota State Capitol. And in those days, PUC Chair Sieben was a member of the Minnesota House, and Mark Ritchie was the Secretary of State at the time. So it's pretty fun to come back around. And also, I'm a little bit biased. Since I'm from Minnesota, I do believe that people there are above average, and I'm we can't play favorites at Power Africa, but I do have a soft spot for Minnesota companies. So this is really great to be connected to you all today. And I'm here to answer questions and also to be a resource for you, and happy to follow up with individual folks after today's event. But So my goals for the presentation are, number one, not to talk too long because I would love to have a discussion with all of you, but I do want to provide a brief overview of our private sector program and share how Power Africa supports trade and investment tools and resources for companies like yours to enter energy markets in sub-Saharan Africa. And then I want to talk about a few upcoming opportunities that I think may be of interest and hopefully a fit for some of the companies that we have here today. Just by a show of hands, I was curious from everyone who's attending today, how many of you have heard of Power Africa or worked with Power Africa before? Do we have that functionality on here? Okay. Oh, okay, cool. Oh, awesome. This is a lot more people than I thought. So this is fantastic. But in a nutshell, for folks who haven't worked with us before, Power Africa is a whole of government approach, utilizing the collective resources of 12 federal agencies. And our goal is to add 30,000 megawatts of clean power generation and 60 million new energy connections by 2030. I feel super honored to get to do this work because energy access does have such a tremendous impact on quality of life and development outcomes. Again, I lead our private sector team in our private sector partnership program. And what that is we connect companies to a network of the world's leading companies, development agencies, and partner governments. I like to say we're kind of a concierge or a matchmaker of sorts, and we connect companies to our interagency partners, their Commerce and Development Finance Corporation, Prosper Africa, who's here today, USTDA, Millennium Challenge Corporation, and we leverage all of their resources to overcome obstacles to increase market access for companies. One other thing that we do at Power Africa is we provide you with tools, resources, information, early stage leads. And we, one of the best assets that I think we offer to our private sector partners is we have a team of over 70 transaction advisors who are located around the continent. And our energy advisors are experts in the energy sector in the markets where they're working. And they're also just experts in knowing what the marketplace is doing. And they're very well connected, usually with the ministries and all the folks on the ground. And so if folks do have particular projects in mind and wanted to talk to the Ministry of Energy, we can facilitate those connections. Or if you're looking to enter a particular country's market, we have a ton of resources online, but we can also facilitate conversations to discuss what's happening in that country. I mentioned our online resources, and I encourage everyone to visit our website. There is so much information on there, but a few things that I think are of tremendous value to companies entering the market is we have a toolbox where you can, it's sort of, you click on different boxes, highlighting, aspects of your company, and then it'll tell you certain programs or interagency partners or resources that could potentially work for your company. And that's kind of a fun thing to sort of play around with first, maybe before we would have a conversation and do a little bit of fact checking, and then we can also answer more detailed questions if you have them. We have a lot of products that we create and keep up to date. So there are market assessments with country-specific, we have market assessments, country-specific fact sheets. We produce handbooks. The most recent one was on transmission financing. Another one was on power project financing. And there's many, many others that are on the website. So those would be a great resource for folks if you're interested. Sorry, I just got to take a little sip here. Overall, though, at Power Africa, we see a huge opportunity for U.S. clean energy exports in African countries. And PUC Chair Sieben talked about the importance of that regulatory environment. And at Power Africa, our team works very hard to create stable, transparent, and reliable energy market regulations with the African governments where we're working. And we feel like this work is critical to opening that space for private sector companies like yours to compete and also to unlock investments. So this is a main focus of our work, supporting the African governments in creating transparent legal and regulatory frameworks, power sector plans, and other standards. Having these clear and transparent standards also reduces sort of the risk of participation in the market and increases, again, the investments. Over the past few years at Power Africa, we have assisted 21 African governments to propose, adopt, or implement regulatory reforms. And this includes 11 competitive procurement reforms. One reform that we worked on when I first joined the team was in Nigeria. Our team was working with the government to set a national metering standard. And so just having one national metering standard across the country makes the market more accessible and also streamlines all the technical specifications of which meters there are and reduces sort of having different meters all around the country and utilizing different requirements and things like that. So that was a big win and an example of a way we sort of open the market, and then US and other companies can come in and put their products into that market. Also, I was going to flag on our website, we have an enabling environment tracker. So if you are interested in entering a country and you want to see what the regulatory environment is, that's a resource that is there for you. So upcoming opportunities. For smaller companies, newer to the African markets, opportunities in our off-grid power projects can be a great place to start. And this is also an area where there's a lot of innovation and a lot of activity coming up. Dr. Banda highlighted how important and game-changing it is to have access to electricity in healthcare clinics. And so partially due to those maternal and child health stories that we hear, also when the COVID pandemic came in, we very quickly shifted and redirected our program funds and our focus in our off-grid program to increase access to healthcare in rural health facilities. There was a program where we went into 9 countries and with some grants. This just recently closed. There's 9 countries with some grants, and they set up about 260 or brought access to electricity to about 250 rural health clinics. And there's going to be more of this work to come. We are redirecting about $7 million more dollars into this area. And then we've also formed a partnership with Sustainable Energy for All. And they're bringing $1 million in funds to build those off-grid healthcare facility electricity opportunities. So we post notices and details about procurements and opportunities. Also, like when this healthcare electrification health facility electrification program is launched, it'll be announced on all of our social media. We will share it with our private sector partners, and we try to broadcast that information as widely as we can. And so I just encourage everybody here to also, if you prefer LinkedIn or Twitter, we also post on Facebook, to follow us, and those opportunities will come your way. Our off-grid team, aside from the healthcare facility electrification, which is going to be a big focus of our work, and I think that program is going to be launched in the spring officially. And our off-grid team is also working to support development solutions for productive use of energy applications. So this is solar, irrigation, refrigeration, and milling, and supporting small-scale farmers. Again, here we have developed some catalogs that can provide country-specific information and including technical specifications, distribution channels, payment, methods, and all of that. Those are available on our website. Maybe worth checking out if you're really interested in the productive use of energy. So our team, who's working on the productive use of energy and connecting it to, small agriculture and other programs like that, they're right now developing sustainable finance models for rural solar productive use applications. And this is pairing solar with irrigation, drinking water, and other small scale farming applications. So the financing solutions will be launched shortly. And again, this will be shared with all of our private sector partners and on our social media. So these are two opportunities that I think could be a good fit with some of the companies, potentially with your companies. And I'm happy anytime to follow up and provide information. Let's see, I'm going to put I have my email here in the chat, and I'm going to send it to you. And then I was going to flag that we regularly host webinars, events, and conferences. So there's always opportunities to hear and learn about new initiatives. We also, one of the big events that we hold annually is our Partners Day event. It was actually going to be in March, but because of COVID, it's been postponed. But now it may coincide with the African Leaders Summit in they're saying summer, maybe fall, in Washington, D.C. And that event is where we bring in our private sector partners. We're doing sort of a matchmaking service where we will have representatives from all of our interagency partners, some of our impact investors, our development partners, and you can have one-on-one meetings with those folks. So if you want to become a private sector partner, I can walk you through that process, individually, or we can talk about it now. I wanted to also flag that there's a Build Back Better World initiative that President Biden will be announcing, maybe February, not sure when that's going to be. Everything's kind of in flux with COVID and things like that. So that will be something to watch for too, because the health facility electrification will be a big focus of that launch. And also all of our interagency partners will be announcing opportunities. So those are just a few events I would watch for too. And I'm going to close now, and hopefully we can have a great Q&A. And the one thing that I want to leave you with is that our team is here to support you. We're interested in connecting with you, and we'd love to have you join as a private sector partner. So thanks.
Thanks, Abbie, for a very, very informative presentation. A lot to think about there. And I mean, it's really an admirable network that seems to be, kind of even speeding up a bit now. It sounds like there's some real momentum going on. So this is great.
I'll say. I just laugh because it's been so crazy, but it's really exciting. And obviously we all have a huge passion for the work that we do. So yes, it's been speeding up.
It's a good thing. And now we have a little time for Q&A. So please, if you have a question, please send it in on the Q&A function, not the chat function, but the Q&A function, so that I can see those. And I'll ask the first question. I'm just struck. There are a lot of companies and organizations from Africa with us today, and I find it very heartening to see the connections are being made actually during the program, which I think is a great thing. So I guess my question would be, since there are so many of these organizations that want to plug into the opportunities you offer, I know you're doing a lot of network within the U.S. government, U.S. private, but how about an African company or organization plug in, make themselves aware of what you're doing, and make U.S. companies aware of what they're doing? I mean, is there any way that that your network can kind of network in that direction as well, to African companies directly?
That's a great question. And, I was kind of focusing the presentation today really just on U.S. companies and in particular Minnesota businesses. But because we're the interagency initiative is led by USAID, we work with companies all around the world. It's not specific to just U.S. We have a number of African companies and investors that are our partners. You can check on our website if you want to see a full list. We've got about well over 170. And one of the things that we do is for some of the procurements, it's a requirement that you have a local partner. And so sometimes we'll get like a US company, a storage company, and they'll say, we want to partner with a local company in South Africa. And so our team can facilitate those introductions. Also, at that Partners Day event, it's a huge interest for us, for our partners to be able to network with each other. And so that's how we see our role, is just connecting, to everything. And we do have a very large network that we can connect folks to. So we do a lot of that. And we're always interested to hear from other companies. And I just wanted to flag actually a really a recent example. So Brian Plourde, who is going to talk later this afternoon with LEMA, they are one of our private sector partners, official private sector partners. And recently a Zambian power company approached us, and LEMA is partnering with them. And there's looking at a project in Zambia. So they had already made the connection, but if, for example, either the Zambian company had come to us and said, hey, we would like to have a partner in this or that area, or LEMA had come and said, hey, we need a partner in Zambia, we try to facilitate those connections.
Are some of the 70 technical experts on the ground in Africa, are they people who can make this connection as well?
Oh yeah, I mean, that's who I go to too. So I think, and I guess I just want to offer folks advice, because, a lot of times, private sector companies or businesses will come to me and just say, okay, well, how do you help us? And I think before that conversation happens, it's very fruitful if you kind of do your homework and have a general idea of maybe markets you want to enter, areas of focus, having a general understanding of how Power Africa works. Because if you have a more specific idea of what you need, for example, a lot of times I'll talk to a company and they'll say, well, we need financing. I'll say, well, what kind of financing do you need? And you're like, debt, equity, what is it that you need? And they'll say, well, we don't know. What do we have an option to get? And I'm like, I can't answer that question for you. I need you to help me be more specific. And then if you, for example, you want debt, we can connect you to one of our resources or interagency partners who can provide that.
Very good. There's a question here from Alexandra Spieldoch, one of our speakers, saying, hey, great talk, and I agree. And can you say more about how Power Africa is partnering with international companies to make technology available to that last mile for value addition and post-harvest mechanization? In other words, kind of you talked a lot about healthcare and about electricity, but this is now another area.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say that the majority of our work is kind of, when I'm thinking about the role, health facilities, they are kind of last mile connections. So we have the off-grid program that I was talking about. That is where those activities happen.
Right. Okay. Very good. A lot of interest in connecting with you and with the network from both sides here. Number one, how does a company become a partner? Simple as that. Another person asked me, what's the process to begin collaborating with your organization on projects in Zambia and Malawi? So once again, any like very specific detail about how to connect, how to become a partner?
Yes. So how to become a private sector partner is we have a conversation. We talk about sort of what maybe what your company does, where, where there's a strategic fit. And then it's a pretty simple process. It doesn't cost anything, but we send you a template letter of interest. You fill that out. There's a few areas of information that you need to include. And then we do a due diligence process with for the USG. And then we onboard you as a private sector partner. And once you're onboarded, you can use Power Africa's branding. You're dialed into our network. I mean, we will help you whether you're a private sector partner or not. The private sector partners just get, first access to information that, we may not share with everyone, or there's that Partners Day event, which is a definite bonus to being a private sector partner. So that's basically how it works. And then if your company has successes and social media or projects, we love to cross promote on our social media as well. So it's a pretty easy process. It just, the letter of intent takes a little bit of work because we need, full background on kind of your financial structure, who your board is, things like that. And then projects in Malawi and Zambia, thank you. This one, if you have a project that you've identified and you have started doing some work on it, but an example, you have a project, you want to implement it, you have a site selected, you've talked to a few folks, but you need to talk to the Ministry of Energy. We can connect you to folks who you could meet with in the Ministry of Energy. Or recently we had a company that they had sort of 5 countries on their list, and they did a visit in each country and met with the Power Africa teams to explore what the opportunities were. We also post leads as we get them and try to have it early stage leads, which then you can review and say, oh yeah, my company is a fit for this. And if you have some questions about pieces of the procurement, then we can also connect you to folks who can answer those questions for you.
Very, very useful. Great. That's excellent. We have kind of a more general question here. Does USAID coordinate with Chinese agencies in developing projects? If not, could this work in the future? So like on the ground collaboration?
Yeah, that's a good question. I honestly, I'm not sure what the answer is, because I think we do, but I'm not sure. So whoever's asking that, I can follow up with you.
Yeah, that's kind of a very general question, but and also there's an interest in priorities. I mean, once again, you mentioned the healthcare and electricity. Would you say there are any other areas now that are either coming on as priorities or that you would mention in the same breath with those?
Yeah, thanks for asking that, because I was just flagging some of the off-grid programs that are going to be having sort of big rollouts and big launches coming out. Also, just because I think those are easier places to get involved. Not a huge giant company climate change program. There was some time where it wasn't the main focus or highlight. So that's a priority area. With priority is to exchange diesel for clean technologies. Also, as I mentioned, we do believe that there are tremendous opportunities for U.S. technologies to enter these markets. So that's a main area of focus. Just energy transition is one we've been working on or started working on with the government of South Africa. Let's see, we kind of do everything. So, and that's also why the presentation, it was hard for me to pull together what to talk about, because there's so much. But, I think that regulatory work, climate change and clean energy technologies, we have a much more increased focus on really focusing on U.S. companies. Again, we love all of our children equally, so we'll work with anybody. And then I think that I just highlighted the off-grid program because it is a place where I've seen more companies be able to actually connect to opportunities and build out those facilities So,
Great.
but everything under the sun.
There you go. I think we have time for probably one more question here. So the question is, patient money or development financing is a challenge for most African IPPs. What are the ways that Power Africa could help?
Well, we have a finance team actually that spends a lot of time working on this. And yeah, I think we have there's a lot of activities going on in the climate finance space right now. So we're pulling together and convening groups on that. Also, I think it sort of depends also on the particular aspects of the financing that you're referencing. But we partner with other countries, development organizations. We partner with the World Bank and all of those types of agencies. I think we have about 20 development partners that can also bring larger amounts of capital to the table.
Right. Great. Okay. Now I'm going to throw in one more here. We talked about companies and governments, and this question has to do with how can grassroots organizations, for example, environmentally centric, community-based organizations working with youth and that sort of thing, that are not exactly companies themselves. Is there any role for them in this huge network?
That's a great question, because we've actually, my team, we've just been talking about that recently. So I think I can't really answer without more specifics, but we do partner with, we recently just partnered with BirdLife International, and they are working with, birds that get caught up in the wind turbines and things like that. So yeah, I think we're going to be working more with environmental NGOs and groups like that. I think it kind of depends on the specifics of the grassroots organization. I'm not really sure we do a lot of work with kids or youth, I guess, just because the nature of the power sector work, but don't quote me on that, because we probably could. So I guess I would want to have some more specifics from this organization and see.
Great. Abbie, this has been just fantastically useful. Thank you. It's great information in detail. I know a lot of people will be wanting to contact you, and the best way is through your email. I mean, the website, how can they just use your email? Right?
I think that I would recommend, again, for folks to check out our website. There's sort of an outline of private sector partnership and kind of what we look for and what it's about. Check out who our private sector partners are. And then me or my team would be happy to connect with folks.
Right. And I might say that in the chat right now, there are a lot of very interesting organizations and companies sort of weighing in. So I think there's a lot of information just in the chat from this meeting in terms of connections and people on the ground who are interested in all this. So
yeah, I see one here and it says, what's the website? I don't know if you're asking me about the Power Africa website, but I will just put the this is the private sector engagement page of the website on there. But we have, and you'll see on the left side, there's where all the tools and resources are. So, I would just I think we have a more productive conversation if you do a little background research before we connect, because then we can get into more specific details and hopefully make it a really productive conversation.
Great. Abbie, thank you so much. And thanks to everyone online. We have a very active and interested group online here, I must say. So this is a great part. Abbie, thanks so much. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys.
You bet. And come back to Minnesota sometime.
You betcha. Can't wait.
Okay.
To, actually.
Maybe not this month, but anyway, yes.
Totally.
Okay. All the best. Yes. So we're going to move along now to our panel. And we'll have a panel discussion. We have two excellent presenters, and then there'll be time again for some Q&A. So I'd like to introduce, first of all, David Edmiston, who is well known to people here in Minnesota. He's a real pillar in the commercial and financial community here in the Twin Cities. He's long worked with the U.S. Commercial Service, but now is regional director for the Minneapolis, Minnesota office of the Export-Import Bank of the United States, and covering a number of states in the northern tier of the country. And he supports American jobs by facilitating U.S. exports, offering financing, including export credit insurance. So it's an independent federal agency, and David is the sole representative up here now, so in a very important position. So he will speak to us first, and then Jeremy Faber, who is with Prosper Africa, which actually was started in the previous administration, but has been sort of continued in the Biden administration, and if anything, I think given even more energy. And he's the private sector engagement advisor for the U.S. government's Prosper Africa. It brings together 17 U.S. agencies. I'm sure he'll be describing how they function and what opportunities his organization offers. He's worked in Africa on the ground in South Africa and Zambia. So we have two excellent panelists who each will give a presentation, and then we'll have some Q&A. So David, we'll start with you, and then Jeremy after that. So David, the floor is yours.
So my name is David Edmiston. I am with the Export-Import Bank of the United States. As Tom mentioned, I'm based here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I'm going to talk a little bit about our organization today. I was hemming and hawing about what to focus on, but I decided to focus on our most common product, which is export credit insurance. We do a number of different things, including, let's see if I can move this. There we go. We do a number of different things, including export credit insurance, working capital guarantees, loan guarantees, direct loans. But export credit insurance is by far our most common product and would be what would be most likely utilized by companies here in Minnesota. Couple other things, we're an independent agency. So I'm a federal employee with the U.S. government. And the Exim Bank, which is what we go by for short, is an independent agency. We're the official export credit agency of the U.S. government. Okay. Other thing to note is, we do a lot with small businesses. So in terms of the range of work that we do, we'll work with the largest of the large, very large transactions, all the way down to the smallest of the small. So no deal is too small for us. Actually, approximately 90% of all the transactions that we do would go to support small businesses. And when we say small business, we're referencing SBA size standards, so typically companies of 500 or fewer employees. In order to work with us, and so this is targeted towards those US-based companies here in Minnesota, and these are for our short-term programs, so programs that are up to 1 year in length. So we're looking to work with companies that have been in business for at least 3 years, are established and have a Dun & Bradstreet number, producing at least 51% of their good or service here in the US, no military or defense related items, selling in one of over 180 countries that we currently operate in, and are exporting from the US. So shipping from the US is kind of the basic criteria for a US company to work with us. And I'll talk about what it means for a company in Africa here in a little bit. So the biggest thing that we do, and what I'm going to focus on here, is export credit insurance. And so what this is our process of ensuring the international receivable from a US exporter to an international buyer. Basic process for it, there's kind of 6 big picture steps. So step 1 would be you identify an international buyer and then obtain an export credit insurance policy from us here at the Exim Bank. Step 2, you offer credit terms to your foreign buyer. Step 3, the buyer accepts the deal's terms. Then you ship your product, you report your shipments and pay premium on the amount shipped. Then the buyer pays you, and if they fail to do so, then we would cover you, the exporter. So 3 big benefits in terms of utilizing an export credit insurance policy. 1, is going to make you more competitive in the global landscape. 2, because of the nature of insurance, it offers non-payment protection. And then 3, it offers access to working capital. Because it's an insured receivable, oftentimes your financial institution can help treat that as an asset to help with cash flow. Before I move on, I also want to touch quickly on that broker part of the slide and kind of explain what that is. So we here at Exim work with independent insurance brokers who help you submit the application, the day-to-day management, be sure you're getting into a policy that makes sense for you and what you're looking to achieve. If you already work with a broker, that's great. If continue to work with them. If not, we can help facilitate an introduction. And then also there is no fee to work with a broker. The brokers are actually paid out of the general policy fees, which are set through your policy. So in terms of export credit insurance and what is covered, it covers two primary buckets. So the first bucket would be the commercial risk associated with the transaction. So these are things associated to that specific buyer. Things like insolvency, bankruptcy, protracted default, which would be slow pay, and then also political risk. So things for that kind of macroeconomic climate for that buyer is located: war, revolution, insurrection, currency transfer risk, cancellation of an import or export license. The thing I do want to highlight is that this does not cover disputes. So you, as a US-based exporter, you ship a blue widget and your buyer says, I ordered a red one. You would have to work that out before the insurance policy would come into play. Next couple slides, I just want to highlight real quick in terms of why this is important and why US companies, we encourage you to think about utilizing a program such as export credit insurance. So this one is just a very basic way for you to think about kind of the terms of sale. So as a US exporter, the most advantageous thing for you is cash in advance. It's the least amount of risk. It's the best for your cash flow. But on the flip side, your international buyer is often going to be interested in open account terms. So this is where they can hold on to their cash, be able to do something with the product once it arrives, so it's less risk for them. And then 30, 60, 90 days later, whatever it might be, they would pay the US company after they've kind of done something with it. So the process of export credit insurance would be able to help you confidently go towards what oftentimes buyers are looking for and be more competitive kind of in that deal landscape. So what you're probably thinking is, how common is this? The answer is it's fairly common. So this is a slide that is from our 2019 Exim competitiveness report to Congress. And the takeaway for this is showing the other ECAs or export credit agencies around the world and kind of how active are they in short-term programs. And the big point is a lot of other places are a lot more active than we are. So it's probably fairly likely that there's other deals going on capitalizing on similar types of programs. And so our goal is for US companies to be aware that this exists and hopefully look at it as they're thinking about doing deals in Africa and other places around the world. So I talked a little bit about how you can work directly with Exim. The other two components for working with us would be, who are you selling to? And we have a process to qualify a foreign buyer. This is kind of where I'll say that in order to work with us, we're going to be operating on what's called a reasonable assurance of repayment. So we will look at specific deals. We're going to look at who's involved, where it's located. And then depending on the size of the deal will depend on kind of how much information we need. And then the larger the dollar value, the more information is going to be that we're going to be looking for. The other thing I'll note is where the deal is taking place. And so this is where the country limitation schedule comes in. So this is on our website, exim.gov. And it's going to have every single country in the world and whether or not we are open for business in that country. And then some extra specific notes, which would be any sort of limitations or restrictions or things that need to be worked through for a specific deal in that country. And it's also going to show, are we open for short-term transactions, which are those up to a year, medium-term transactions, which are typically about 2 to 5 years, and long-term transactions, which would be 7 years or more. So that's the country limitation schedule. And then quickly, I also wanted to show this as well, which is two of our most common policies and kind of the structure of how they work. So this is express insurance targeted towards small businesses. So businesses that have 10 million or fewer export credit sales, have been offering export credit for fewer than 5 years, provides 95% coverage. There's no deductible. can be issued with a $500 refundable policy issuance fee. We go through help the process of qualifying all of the buyers. And then the other important part is no matter where you're talking in the world, the policy premiums are always going to be the same. So for 1 to 60-day terms, 65 cents for every $100 of invoice value that you're looking to insure. We can also do single buyer policies where we're looking at one specific buyer in one specific location. A little bit different in the sense that it's 90% coverage as opposed to 95% coverage. And then the cost for it is going to depend on where it is. So on our website, again, exim.gov, we'll have every country in the world and what the policy premium fees would be for that. If you're not already working with the Department of Commerce, the U.S. Commercial Service, I would strongly encourage you to do so. And then also want to highlight the Small Business Administration as well. The three of us kind of are the on-the-ground office here in Minnesota. And then finally, there is my contact information. If folks have specific questions on a specific deal or other Exim policies and products, my email, david.edmiston@exim.gov would be the best way to get a hold of me. And so with that, Tom, I'll hand it back over to you.
Thank you, David. Very informative. I like the container ship on your card there. I hope it's not stuck somewhere. But anyway, that's great information. Now we'll do Q&A after Jeremy speaks. So in other words, save your questions for both panelists and please submit them through the Q&A function. So Jeremy, we're looking forward to hearing your sort of description of the Prosper Africa initiative. Now the floor is yours.
Thanks, Tom. And I'm going to keep it short because I do want to get to all the questions that we have. Prosper Africa really was created as a way for businesses, both in the U.S. and in Africa, to avoid all of the scrambling that it takes, the hair pulling that it takes to figure out which government agency does what and how to hook into U.S. government tools and resources. So, David did a great explanation of credit insurance, the different types of products that they offer. You could find out all about all that by coming to our website, prosperafrica.gov, where we have about 80 tools from across the U.S. government in our toolkit there. The whole idea of Prosper is that we recognize that each of these agencies has a very specific lane and a specific solution that they're trying to provide. But you as a business may not know how those things are broken up, particularly small businesses who are just getting going, or maybe are right at that 3-year threshold to work with us. You can come to prosperafrica.gov and one of our trade investment advisors will actually sit down and do some co-counseling with you. We also work very closely with the SBA, the Department of Commerce, the International Trade Administration's Export Assistance Center there in Minneapolis. I've had the pleasure of meeting all of the team there, and they're outstanding. They also work closely with state economic development offices, and I know the folks over there as well. So there are some non-federal government resources at the state level that are available to Minnesota companies as well. If you're tuning in from outside of Minnesota, your state potentially has some resources. If you're tuning in from Africa, it's probable that the U.S. government has been working with your government there at some level at the ministry or even all the way up to the presidency to have some sort of program or support service for you in this export space. Now, bringing it back to the renewable energy discussion, where I spent many years with Power Africa based in South Africa, worked with Abbie for a couple of years there. I'll say that these projects tend to be more complicated than projects in other sectors. So for power projects or anything really in renewable energy, we see quite often the power of partnerships and the power of the network, because no one company or no one donor or no one government, quite frankly, can go it alone. And we, in every case, this is going to require you working with somebody else. So I just want to plug the Power Africa partnership model and their annual partners meeting. It is such an incredible place to go and meet other companies who are active in those spaces. Maybe you find the one who can help fill in the gap. And the best part about the Power Africa Partners initiative is that It includes governments. Exim Bank is a part of that. Host country African nations are a part of that through ministries. Banks are a part of that. Capitalization firms are a part of that. Funds are a part of that. And we're a part of that as well. So we like to think that this is the future of government work, is increased collaboration, increased sharing of data and information within the government, increased outreach, coming on webinars like this with you all today to let you know that we're here to help, that we care about Africa, and that we believe that there's just incredible opportunities there for U.S. and African businesses to work together. And we do have some ways that we can help facilitate that. Depends on what you're doing. So, I try to stay away from, digging in deeply, because I feel each situation, each company is a very bespoke solution. So we do one-on-one counseling, and I think that that's really the only way to do this. My information I will also drop into the chat here. I'll give you my direct email as well as our website. I encourage you to visit both. Please write out to me. And my connection to Minnesota is that I'm a proud St. Thomas alumni. So I'll stop there. Go back to you, Tom. Let's get some questions going. Thanks.
Hey, thanks very much, Jeremy. Very, very good. So, as I say, please send your questions in here. So yes, I noticed that Prosper Africa is very much a two-way. Sees itself as a two-way trade and investment opportunity. So once again, that question, which you kind of touched on there at the end, but I mean, how are our colleagues and those with us online right now in Africa with their own interest in getting involved, the best way to plug in then would be to connect with the sites that you gave, or are there other structural ways they can plug in, like in their own countries, where they would go to begin getting into this network?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Prosper Africa represents the entirety of the U.S. government's work in trade and investment in Africa. So there's a lot, right? We have a full network of U.S. embassies in every country in Africa. We have USAID mission presence in most of those places as well. And I mentioned USAID because they're an important piece of this puzzle, where the Department of Commerce is statutorily required to focus on U.S. business exports abroad. They really are limited in what they can do on this 360 trade. They're not really able to look at the full picture of the two-way trade relationships. So we're able to work with USAID, who through a development objective, through their statutory requirements for what that agency does, is looking to help to bring goods back or to increase the overseas development. And so we can connect USAID and the Department of Commerce, and we create these things called embassy deal teams in countries, where active transactions or active businesses in African countries have one place to go. Now, they can unlock that, Tom, by coming to me directly, or by working with their country there, reaching out to the embassy there in Africa. Great.
Thanks, Jeremy. David, a question about sort of the terms of the export insurance. It's broken down into commercial and political. Political must be kind of tricky to assess. For example, if a company is doing business, say in China, and suddenly Xi Jinping changes the policy, and there's a political obstacle to doing business. I mean, how broadly do you define political?
It's pretty broad. So basically, if you remember the slide that I had of cancellation of an import or an export license. So let's imagine a country changes the terms of money can't leave the country or goods can't come in. We're looking at the current state of how something looks right now. So if you remember how I talked about that country limitation schedule, we're kind of taking a big picture look of what does it look like in China or any other country where it might be. And then if that landscape changes, that's kind of a big reason why you would have insurance. The thing I will also say, as I mentioned the broker part of it, when a company signs up for a policy, they're going to sit down with the broker and go through the very fine print of what that deal covers, what it doesn't cover. And as folks are thinking about, well, what if this happens? That would be a good time to have that conversation. But from a simple answer, as macro geopolitical things change, and if it changes, that's a big reason why folks would have insurance and have that political risk covered.
So even if it happens some years after the deal was struck.
Well, and so that's a really good question. So our deals, the majority of them, I think all of them actually, are 1 year renewable. So it's not like you would sign up for a policy and then say, I'm good for the next decade. And 9 years later, there's something wildly different. It's a 12-year renewable at the end of that, or 12-month renewable. At the end of that 12-month cycle, there would be the opportunity, if it's going well, to renew.
So if you're in a politically unstable country, you'd really want to keep renewing it. I would guess that would be a good idea.
Yeah, a lot of the folks that have worked with us have had policies for years and years, but we would relook at it annually.
Very good. We have a number of questions coming in just about the program itself. People would very much like to get a copy of the Exim presentation, for example. Some people are interested in downloading the chat. Apparently, it's not possible to download the chat, so I think a lot of people would like to have that somehow retained. There's a lot of information, a lot of contact information going on right now in the chat. So I know that this is being recorded, and so it should be possible for attendees to follow up. But anyway, we're getting those kind of very specific questions about how to retain the information that's coming out in this program, because there's a lot coming out, of course. So, well, let's see now, to keep on our time schedule, I think unless there's any more questions coming in, I think I want to thank our two panelists very much, David and Jeremy. This has been great, and we're going to move on to the next phase. We're right on schedule, amazingly. Let's go for another few minutes then. Also, since we were closing down, some questions have come in. So, there's a very specific question here. Yeah, somebody has a question for David. So we have worked with USAID and Power Africa in the past. Where does the Millennium Challenge Corporation fit in?
That's an outstanding question. Not many people know about MCC. It is, the way it does its business is a little bit different. So MCC will go into a country and they'll start looking, and they'll spend many years working closely with the host country government and the private sector to really understand where the needs are. And once they have identified a country as a compact worthy country, they'll go in and sign a compact directly with the host country. And those compacts are anywhere between $300 and $500 million, usually over like a 5-year period. And the money's actually given to what they call, it's like a local authority that's vested through MCC and the government. And it's very much a local solution for a very specific problem. So what we've seen with MCC recently, a couple of their compacts have included energy components, largely for the things that have difficulty finding financing, such as transmission and distribution, extensions, maintenance, and things like that. So you have the question of access to electricity. You can generate all this power, but how do you get it to people in their house? How do we get productive use? How do we create connections in the houses? MCC is doing things like that at a very high level. And I see Abbie's raising her hand because she's going to come in and correct me. But MCC is an incredible partner. We work closely with them as well. But MCC is particular in that they're only active in a certain number of countries that they have a compact. Now, please, Abbie, please make that right.
No,
Yes,
I wasn't going to correct you, but I was just going to flag that on the interagency team, I serve as the liaison to MCC. And they mainly focus a lot of their work on the regulatory environment, because that creates sort of that broad countrywide change that they're looking for. For U.S. companies, it's been a little bit difficult to connect to the MCC opportunities. And so one of the things that I've actually been working on is sharing the leads as they come out for the MCC compacts. So as a private sector partner, you get all of our early stage leads. There's a website called DG Market that also posts the MCC leads, and you can access the MCC leads for free. I think you have to pay for the other services, but it's a challenge that we've been trying to address because MCC wants to see more companies bid on their projects, and so there's big energy compacts going on in Senegal, Gambia, Burkina Faso, and Benin and Sierra Leone, and then they're doing a West Africa power pool project. There may be one upcoming in Zambia. So to me, I think MCC is a great opportunity. It's just sometimes the procurements are either like very, very large or more small and specific. So they also post their leads on a UN website. I'll find the link and put it in the chat, but I do think that's also a great question and a great opportunity as well.
Excellent. And once again, they probably have their own website. There are ways of plugging in directly to the MCC, not just through the UN, right? I mean,
they just post the procurements on those websites. And as Jeremy mentioned, the actual procurements are coming out from the government of the countries where there are compacts.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, MCC, it's worth checking out their website. It'll show you where the compacts are and what the specific focus of the compacts are, if it's regulatory environment or transmission and distribution, generation, creating. Recently, they had they had their largest procurement that went out, and it was $220 million for an undersea electricity cable. Mm-hmm. And we talked to all of our friends at the Commerce Department, and we're asking, hey, are there American companies that could fulfill this, could do this procurement? And unfortunately, we didn't come up with a lot. There were only like two that were even kind of mildly interesting, but those are the kind of things that we like to share and we look for to share with companies.
Excellent. And I have a question, just kind of final question before we turn it over to Mark here. I get the feeling that there's increasing focus maybe on Africa now in the U.S. government. Obama had a Year of Africa, which was a big event. Do you sense that there's more to come now? I mean, there are other initiatives on Africa that may be potentially in the offing?
100%. So that Year of Africa, I actually worked on codifying Power Africa into law with Congress.
Yes.
Before I came over to USAID, and the African Leaders Summit is Biden's sort of, it's not really a Year of Africa, but that's the event. And it's Obama had that event, I think it was 2016, and now Biden's pulling it together. And that event, because of COVID, everything's in flux. But I heard yesterday, maybe summer, which seems pretty soon, but I think I was hearing before fall. I don't know, Jeremy, if you have any more updated information on when that's going to happen or not.
I'm not sure we're supposed to say, but yes, no.
Go ahead. We're among friends.
Well, we can say that it's been announced. A few weeks ago, the president did announce that, and we are looking at that later this year, in this calendar year. So yes, absolutely.
Excellent.
And we're laser focused on that. It's an incredible opportunity, for us to really demonstrate this partnership as we see it from a policy level going forward. It's incredibly important.
Yeah, right. And then also the B3W, which is Build Back Better World initiative, that is also forthcoming as well. And there will be some focus on African countries and opportunities at that as well. So those are two Biden initiatives that will be launched soon. Sorry, summer, fall, that's not too specific, Jeremy. I'm not going to get us in trouble, am I?
No. And, last question. I mean, based on what happened with Obama's Year of Africa, is this a case for not just governments, but private sector that becomes a big event for all kinds of players, including African organizations or even companies, that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Funny you should ask. We're about to bring some of those companies up.
Okay, great. Well, this is a very good transition then. So, well, David, Jeremy, also Abbie, thank you again. It's been really, really great information. And it's a pleasure now to turn things over to Mark Ritchie for our next panel.
Thank you, Tom. And what a great panel. And, it's so inspiring to have our government and our civil servants and our representatives so tuned in and so aware of and ready to figure out how we partner. And so Tom Hanson is ultimate diplomat, but also a visionary. And so having his leadership, was a really, really important and valuable opportunity. And there's lots of folks on the planet watching this, but a lot more need to see this panel and get these kind of questions and comments that we're seeing in the chat room. So Minnesota African United will be making that available. Stay tuned. But we are having the opportunity now to hear from some of the companies and some of the institutions and organizations that are making these connections happening now. And I want to ask all of our panel members to come on board. We're going to get some quick introductory remarks, and then have opportunity to take your questions. Of course, keep putting them in the question box there. Ted Christopher, you are somewhere over there. I'm looking for people to open up their audio and their video and to join me on the screen.
I'm here, Mark. Can you hear me?
There, now I can. Thank you so much. Alexandra, you are there.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Great. Yes, I can. Brian, where are you?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Great. There you are. Thank you very much. Yes. And Larry, great. So
Okay.
I'm just going to take this as I can see you on my gallery screen and brief introductions, and then we'll start taking these amazing questions that are coming in from the whole planet. Ted, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Well, Mark, thanks for hosting us here, as well as Basil. And it's been really interesting to hear, and inspirational, quite frankly, from the other panelists. I'm going to share my screen now. All right. Is this coming through, Mark?
Perfect. Great.
All right. So Verterra Energy is focused on reimagining how to harness the power of flowing water on our planet without having to build a dam. And as so many people know, it's just this huge resource. It's obvious, right? Water's everywhere. We've got all these rivers. And so there's been a lot of attempts recently in the past decade to try and figure out a new way of harnessing this power. And quite a few companies out there are already in progress. And they're essentially taking wind designs and putting them in water. And there's some pretty fundamental problems with that. The first is just the clogging and jamming issue is very severe. There's quite a bit of debris in the water. There's an expensive, lengthy process in terms of deploying these assets, and it's in its infancy yet. So what we've done is try and address these problems head on. And the key main problems that we're trying to solve with Volturnus are, first, that clogging and jamming; second, the depth that's required to deploy; and then third is just that modularity, the ability to parallel with other energy assets like wind and solar to make a complete system. So we really approach this from a clean slate, and that's why Volturnus looks so different from the existing efforts. So here's some of the base overviews, and I hope everybody can see this because it's a little hard to describe Volturnus. I think the best the best one I've heard so far was it looks like an alien spaceship from a Steven Spielberg movie, but these deploy directly into rivers and oceans. So think of kind of like a manta ray just hovering in the water column. It actually harnesses both the velocity of the water that's coming into it, as well as the weight of the water. And this allows us to achieve a very, very high efficiency as far as energy extraction goes. These are also incredibly easy to deploy. So instead of having divers in the water or big civil works, these have very specific proprietary anchors that allow them to be deployed and retrieved very quickly, literally in under half an hour. The current status of the company is we have successfully developed and solved these crucial problems and are now commercializing the technology. We have been partnering with the Army Corps of Engineers on a microgrid program to commercialize the technology. So our next steps with them are building kind of an expedition size or a backpack size, as well as a microgrid size. And this is what we're focused on for the next 2 years, but this is also really good kind of time and opportunity for us to kind of listen and specifically, Dr. Banda's heartbreaking story is the reason why we're developing this, because we really see this as a linchpin to enabling this distributed renewable revolution that we're all trying to make happen. So with that, I'll end my presentation and look forward to hearing everybody's thoughts.
Thank you. Alexandra.
Thanks, Mark. I'm Alexandra Spieldoch, and I'm CEO of Bountifield International. We are based in the Twin Cities, and our particular area of expertise is post-harvest technology solutions for smallholder markets in sub-Saharan Africa. We're in our 40th year as an organization, and we've worked in multiple countries around the world. And historically, we actually developed small-scale post-harvest processing equipment for rural communities in various countries, including shellers, small-scale threshers, multiple crop grinders. We've dabbled in solar ovens and other types of technology. One of the things that has been so compelling in this conversation certainly was to hear from Madam President Joyce Banda and her experience in Malawi, as well as ours, that less than 10% of the population in a country like Malawi actually has access to electricity. And this has impacted the kind of work that we've done to help save more food and process more food in those areas that really need it. How can we introduce technology solutions that also are long-lasting, that are not struggling with power shortages and these kinds of things, so that we can have more efficiency in local food markets? One of the things that we have introduced in Kenya has been solar drying and solar biomass drying with farmers cooperative there, that essentially is working with cassava as a key crop. And whereas without the drying technology, they had chippers available for processing the technology, but with that, they still needed drying technology to improve the time that they're spending on drying, and also the quality of the food. So whereas it would take one day to dry a ton of cassava through traditional methods, and even that precarious, depending on the weather, with technology that we introduce, the drying can happen in 3 hours. We see this kind of technology as revolutionary for the kinds of business development that we'd like to see in food markets across Africa. We have worked with the National Association of Women in Business in Malawi as well, for example, introducing multiple crop grinders to develop small-scale women-run businesses for value addition. And key to this work is being able to look at solarizing the grinder and having long-term utilization of grinders to reduce the time, but also the effort that women spend in grinding various crops to make value-added products. And we worked with St. Olaf to develop a solar prototype for the grinder that could actually be rolled out in various countries, including Malawi. And so this to me is a fascinating conversation. It's exactly where we want to go. We see that there at times it's easier to look at technology for mid-range kinds of projects or even larger infrastructure projects, perhaps for healthcare, as was mentioned by others. But when it comes to this last mile, and that was the basis of my question earlier, you know, how do you really reach those who are most vulnerable in rural communities with small-scale technology, actually, that's effective and that can and really be a game changer for a whole variety of sustainable development goals? That's where we're focused, and we're ready to partner with anybody who wants to introduce the solar technology, renewable energy initiatives to increase farmers' ability to save, process, and sell more food. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexandra. Larry.
Good morning, everybody. This has been an incredible program. I am Larry Mahoney, and I'm going to share a screen. I want to talk about some very specific products approaching healthcare and sustainable energy. This approach will involve the United States. My company, Asia Direct Resource, is a U.S. company. It will involve my operations in China, and it will involve Africa. I want to start this conversation talking about the Exim 222 nanometer ultraviolet high energy protective light system. This is a technology that is not new. It is well established. The benefits of this technology are well established. The safety of this technology is well established. What we have done is developed a mass production operation of this specific ultraviolet light. The 222 nanometer is the key. You can look at this light without burning your eyes. Extended exposure will not give you a suntan. It will not burn your skin. It is very safe. My company, Asia Direct Resource, is more than 30 years old. With my partner, David Lee, we started this in 1989. We have an extensive staff in China. We are the source for this Exim 222 ultraviolet bulb. As I said, this light system is proven absolutely to kill pathogens, bacteria, germs, and COVID, and its derivatives, while offering full personal safety. Here we have a letter from the Center of Studies of Information from Wuhan University in China. Wuhan University is well established and well recognized as one of the premier research institutes in the world. This ultraviolet light can be used in a multiplicity of ways. Very extensive application. That's what you're looking at here. This is a very extensive portal that may be used at large sporting events, shopping malls, any place where you have a lot of people entering a facility that would pass through this portal and be disinfected of any pathogens, any COVID. I'm going to run this brief video for you of our display at the Canton Fair recently. You can see that this is a no-nonsense application. You know that COVID is very carefully dealt with in Africa. This is a very, very effective approach to controlling COVID. We have different sizes. This large size, of course, is the top end. It's quite expensive. We have smaller approaches. And when I get towards the end of my presentation, my favorite ceiling light, very affordable, very effective. This is a smaller portal that's being used at a factory entrance. Again, it's quite effective, but it's one person at a time, where the large portal will take several people at once. But this is actually in use at a factory in China. Pricing. That large portal I told you is expensive. The minimum order quantity on that unit is 6 pieces. 2 pieces will fit in a 40-foot container. The estimated cost, the approximate cost is $57,000 delivered to a China port. The small portal, the minimum order quantity is 16 units. 16 fully assembled units will fit in a 40-foot container. The estimated cost is $15,000 delivered to a China port. As I said, these prices are quoted delivered to a China port because the customer, the consignee, must arrange ocean shipment delivered to the final destination. All African countries require that the consignee be an African entity. Cost to deliver a 40-foot container from China to its destination in Africa is in the area of $20,000, and transit time is about 8 weeks. Now we're getting to the ceiling lamp that I mentioned earlier. This is very effective. The use and application is extensive. It is great to be used in an office, in doctor's offices, dental offices, hotel rooms, restaurants. The application is very easy and very effective. I have one at home. This is the one that I have at home. The minimum order quantity on this unit is 500 pieces. 4,000 fit in a 40-foot container. The price of this is $500 per piece, delivered to a China port. So the proposal is, in today's world, with the ever-present COVID environment, the knowledge that this is an airborne pathogen, the use of UV technology is very appropriate and very necessary. The effectiveness of this bulb is proven to 99.9% effective killing COVID. And as I said, it is safe to look at and for extended exposure. Use it in classrooms. So I say to African nations, let us know your need, and we will offer a specific quote, and that quote can include on-site installation and support. Then I want to talk briefly about solar panels opportunity. Why China? China is simply the largest producer of solar panels in the world. Quality is excellent, performance is excellent, as is pricing, and the product is available. pricing is more complicated with solar panels. It's a more complicated technology than you might imagine. There's a great deal of engineering required, so pricing is available on request. In today's world, energy at a premium, and we've talked about this, others have talked about this morning. It's always available from the sun. There's a lot of sun in Africa. Solar panels to capture and transmit the sun's energy simply makes sense and will continue to grow and become increasingly necessary. So my company, I'm a guy that wants to do things, wants to get things done. These are two approaches, the UV approach, the solar panel approach. I hear that the finances are available. I hear them on this conversation this morning, that the funding can be made available. So I look for your questions and your interest.
Thank you, Larry.
My contact information here. And that does it.
All right. Thank you. Brian.
Greetings. Great job on the presentation so far. Thanks, Basil, for inviting me to be part of it. I'm going to share my screen as well. So I'm Brian Plourde. I'm from St. Paul. I've spent quite a bit of time in about a dozen different countries across Africa. Most of my time I spent was in East Africa and Kenya. And I'm part of a company called LEMA. We are a manufacturing company that focuses on sustainable energy products, mostly remote aid products. You know, we are USAID Power Africa partners. I move my screen. Oh, we're this picture over here. And we are also GUGLA members, which is the Global Off-Grid Lighting Association membership, which deals with a lot of Pico Solar, which is the primary last mile power option in Africa. And we're also part of AMDA, which is the Africa Mini Grid Developer Association. So we're active in the market and being part of associations to try to make sure that our companies within international compliance and playing by correct, geopolitical terms. Our vision, our mission is to improve access to basic human needs. Our company in the US focuses on R&D technology. We integrate a lot of great Minnesota companies like 3M, Pentair, Uponor, Toro into a product. And then we work with local entrepreneurs in different markets to implement into the market sector. We have a series of products that we've been building and testing for quite some time. And the ones that I'm going to show today are LEMA Power. We drop ship this anywhere on earth. Just signed up a couple of projects in Haiti for women's shelters. Just set up a project in South Sudan. And we use this for rural AC power and running water. You can see from the GIF on the bottom, we incorporate a series of technologies in there to make it more conducive for off-grid power applications. And we really try to drive this as a premium style product where there's an app, it's fun, it's entertaining, streams Wi-Fi, kids play with it. It's a toy. Most of our consumers use it as a personal entertainment toy like you would a John Deere tractor. The other product, two products that we've been shipping out is LEMA Thermal, which we use for domestic hot water. This uses solar thermal energy to cost effectively heat fluids. And our primary market are areas outside of the reach of natural gas. Africa and Latin America are our main markets we're going after. Specifically to Africa and Asia is we use this to make hot, potable drinking water. Why this is novel, if you grew up in a culture that's used to the trust affiliated with having hot drinking water. Boiling water typically has increased value. Same to, if you haven't been to Africa, same to why people pay a lot of money for tea at Starbucks. It's just a bunch of hot water with flavor. We try to use different types of business models to incorporate our products into a market. This GIF is showing an example of how we're working on using mobile money and a phone app with a jerry can to sell hot drinking water as a service, similar to a shared service product you would see in the US, which are also common in Africa, like Uber or Bird scooters. This is my contact information. Like I said, our vision is to improve the quality of life for people using technology, and we are active in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And I know your work. I want to thank you for all you've done to make people's lives better. I have the first question that's come up for Alexandra. It says post-harvest losses. The system is moving that question out of my line of sight. One moment, please. I read the question. It was about roots and tubers, Alexandra, and wondering what are the options, some ideas that you have within the Bountifield work for dealing with those kind of crops.
Yes, and I think the question, I did also look at it prior. So the question was for women's groups in Malawi, first of all, the Cyclone Ana and the the negative impacts of that, the devastating impacts of that on Malawi, which is is a major concern, but also just the lack of consistent sunlight also being a challenge. And then finally, the cost for a women's group to access, solar powered energy. And I believe the statement was that it was about $55,000 US dollars
for the transformer.
Afford that, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know the particular situation and the background of that. All I can say is that one of the technologies that we were looking at was from Kenyatta University in Kenya. The one that we deployed there with cassava specifically was solar biomass dryer unit. And so that also tackled the question of, what to do when it's not sunny outside and how to also incorporate more renewable energy into the technology itself. So be happy to have a conversation, offline about that. The challenge of solarizing milling equipment, for example, as I said, we did some prototyping with St. Olaf here, and we came up with a prototype that's less than $2,000 for the small scale units that we work with. So I think it depends on the volume and the size of the business, et cetera, but I'm talking about very small scale initiatives.
Great. So, Ted, you're in a partnership with the Corps of Engineers to help bring some volume, some lift to this, but I know you've been thinking into Africa. Do you have in your mind what would be good pilots, betas, projects that would show the success that you're already exploring or would like to maybe mine this great group of people who have gathered for today's seminar?
Right. No, you're right, Mark. So we've been partnering with the Army Corps specifically to focus on that microgrid application and that integration and parallelability. And so the real interest for us at this stage, like you alluded to, is to find some areas where there's either already some existing projects going on in Africa, places like Malawi, obviously, and to be able to send some of these deployment or pre-commercialization units over and explore, tailoring these specific Volturnus scales to very specific needs in Africa. So that's certainly something that we would welcome, and I'll put my contact information up as well, because we are moving very quickly on the commercialization, and realistically within this year we'll want to be doing some pilots internationally with this backpack size, and then the microgrid the year following. So we're kind of parallel tracking with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers here in the United States, and then exploring and setting up some of these international programs as well.
People on the panel with some ideas?
And I'll put I'll share my contact info here too at our website.
Well, each of you was focusing on a very specific product, innovation, a new kind of technology, but they all had to do with sort of things that are right in front of people's lives in terms of challenges. Well, the COVID crisis, the necessity to produce enough food and to be able to treat that food in a post-harvest way to protect it over time and to make it available, finding solutions for power generation, and also finding solutions for some of the last mile questions. Are there reasons or examples of partners that you've found who've helped you in your specific focus move into a broader vision or a new technology, or a combination of forces, a vision of technology that you would share with us to give an example of how that might look to others who are watching today, thinking, how might I partner with them? How might I partner with you, Larry, to be able to make this possible? Or Brian, I think your work is based on partnerships in many, many ways. And so, and of course, really all five of you are partnering people because but give our listeners some specifics so they could see how they might see partnerships as a way to get a foothold into a new solution.
Okay, if I might, we've got a number of installations of the UV system in China. We're in the process of installing UV systems in Australia, and the primary use has been at shopping malls for that major unit, at large sporting events, and at factory entrances.
So places where we know there's a flow of people and there's some kind of an owner of the factory, of the sporting team, or the venue. So kind of clear responsibility, and they have an economic interest in having the solution you offer. Is that fair?
That's exactly right. And of course, solar panels, solar panels have been around for a long time. So it's a matter of doing it,
yeah,
funding and getting it done.
Mark,
Brian.
I have something to share on a partnership. We found that partnerships through universities allowed us to come out with designs that were very culturally specific. And when we would go around and teach at universities or enroll at universities to find, the right types of knowledge, and we've used it for making sure that the product really does the job that it's supposed to do.
Give us one example. That sounds like fun.
Okay. So I've met Julian, who's been posting on the chat. Julian is one of my team members. She's from Kenya. We've met Julian at a university, Kenya University. And when we went around, we hit the majority of the Kenyan counties together. And we would travel around and ask marketing surveys, and having that local knowledge allowed us to ask more responsible questions. We were talking about water in remote Africa. I'm a man. I can't talk to a rural woman in a village because it's not culturally appropriate. And the conversation doesn't belong in my ear, it belongs in Julian's ears. So we'd always joke where I'd go around and distract the old men, and Julian would go and talk to the actual people who had to walk and get water, right? So we're developing, that really enabled us to look at the problem from different perspectives, which I thought would be would take a lifetime to figure out yourself, right?
Or you would never figure it out, or you do it wrong. Yeah. Great example. Thank you. Thank you, Julian.
I'll jump in and just say,
Jump in.
We, for example, in Senegal, one example of a partnership was with USAID mission there. As part of a project, a 4-year project, we had to introduce post-harvest technology for threshing pearl millet. And we had developed a hand-operated thresher that we were introducing into the market, specifically targeting, efforts to save women's time, and again to support the emerging pearl millet market within that country. As we got into the implementation, we saw that Senegal, like many other places, is evolving quickly with its own markets and its own infrastructure, and there was a stronger desire for motorized. So we partnered with a local manufacturing firm in Senegal called Omega Technology, with support from the USAID mission there, to also do some prototyping with solar, and to explore that not only with the thresher, but as I mentioned earlier, we partnered with them to do some prototyping with our milling unit, our multi-crop grinder, to introduce solar. So that's an example where we can partner with the government, the international and national government. We can also partner with local manufacturing firms, and we prioritize that as a way to also get closer to having available, accessible, and as Brian mentioned, culturally appropriate technology that will be effective. We believe very strongly in partnerships. That's how Bountifield does all of its implementation. And so we work with a range of food buyers, for example, who are interested to strengthen their offering with food technology, where they have challenges with supply of food, small scale equipment, and can help them to increase their volume of food being supplied for their business. Other NGOs like Self-Help Africa, who are doing their part to help strengthen local markets with technology. Chamber of Commerce, trying to look at small scale business development with micro entrepreneurs with post-harvest equipment and equipment suppliers. So there's no one size fits all. I think the spirit is to also have a very close connection with the African private sector to be able to roll out effective activity.
Great, thank you. Ted.
Yeah, the question of partnerships for us has been interesting because just the different applications involved, very much like with what the other panelists are talking about, and certainly here in Minnesota, there's a lot of resources and great companies to work with and collaborate with. For us in particular, because Volturnus is a water application, there's other opportunities in terms of what to make this shell out of at different sizes. So we're exploring everything from recycled ocean plastic to certain types of materials that will eventually be biodegradable. But it's just very interesting for us as a new company to kind of hear about what the other panelists are doing and how they're approaching this, and certainly, Brian's anecdote about understanding different cultures and trying to tailor your technology to specific needs, I think is crucial, and has certainly been very helpful for me today, just to hear everybody's thoughts on that.
One of the things about Basil's genius in his work has been understanding that although the Twin Cities has a lot of places where startups and kind of founders and, there's just, we got Startup Week. I think it's the second biggest in the country, all that. But there's something different about trying to consciously serve a global market with values and intention. There's something different about the challenges and the opportunities.
Absolutely.
Alexandra represents an organization that's 40 years old, used to have a different name, Compatible Technology, but she's still having things that are really common to Brian, who's got a number of years in this, and Ted, who's going, and Larry's been at it for a long time. So I think there's something about gatherings like this, because the quality of the questions and the comments, and Alexandra, they're looking for your contact information over there, but the quality of the participation is about people who want to do business to make lives better, and who have the emotion of, if we don't do this, lives are going to get worse, and that's not okay. And so I just really, I'm admirers of all your work, and also just so, committed to making sure that we not only keep these conversations going, but then we make the actual connectivity part. I just met Ted this week, basically, but it's because I've been working for many years with Betty McCollum's Chief of Staff, Bill Harper, who's been paying attention to things happening in our community around our relationships with the things that in the planet, either we do them right or they cause wars, famine, for example, deprivation, lack of water. So I feel like Minnesota, we have some special opportunities, or some special, maybe I would say, obligations, responsibilities, because we are thinking about the planet. Then we have to take our best ideas and apply them, and then we got to turn them into sales or partnerships or installations or whatever it is on that end. And you guys represent, some of the best and some of the brightest about this. And I'm just really looking forward to getting today's panels and all of them up on the website for MAU, getting these chats and questions captured, because they're invaluable. But I also feel like we want to keep this conversation going. And so one of the things Basil and I are doing is making sure that every last Friday of every month, we're doing a half-day panel to build trade and relationships between Minnesota, and broadly speaking, our community, our region, with Africa, all different sizes, shapes of kinds of enterprises, but every month on Friday morning. And the sectors are interrelated. Mining is interrelated with foreign currency and with power, and medical and pharma is interrelated with food and well-being. So letting everybody know that we're just as one conversation, and each month it'll go on. But Basil also has a plan for a trade mission that would start in Ghana, go to Cameroon, go to Kenya, go to Malawi in late May. We're working out details and timing exact and all of that. And of course, COVID has its own life. But if you're at all thinking about these relationships and these connections, please think about whether you could benefit from participating in something like that, in something like a trade mission. And those ideas about trade missions are part of the broader thinking about always keeping this a two-way street, always thinking of trade as actually trade, always think of investment as something that's good for both parties, always trying to think about how we're treating each other and how we're treating the planet, and what's the future generation going to think about how we handled some pretty big challenges that at least are standing in front of us right now. We're near the end of our time, and I want to give each of the panelists the last word here. Last things you would like to share, questions you want to leave in people's minds, inspiration you want to leave in people's hearts. I'm going to start at the top. Ted, you're up there on my left.
Well, Mark, I just want to thank you again for the opportunity here, and Basil as well. These are the types of events for me at least that really give me a lot of energy and give me a lot of hope because of all the extraordinary work that everybody else is doing. And it's it is really going to take a global community to address these problems like Mark is talking about. And we just hope at Verterra that we've got something that can be part of that solution, and certainly harnessing the power of flowing water on our planet in a new way, in a modular distributed way, I think is going to be a big help to that. So I look forward to, as Mark said, continuing the conversation and just learning from everyone else. It's been really wonderful.
Thank you. Brian.
Yeah, no, I would like to thank everybody for the opportunity to talk today, and Basil for setting this up, and Mark, great job on orchestrating the questions and comments. So I know I'm interested in doing business anywhere in Africa. So if people are interested, feel free to reach out to me or reach out to Julian, and I look forward to see where the conversation goes. Thank you.
Great. Larry.
This has been an absolutely great program. And I look forward to any inquiries, any interest in the products I've discussed this morning.
Thank you. Alexandra, take us home.
Yeah, I mean, I also want to reiterate, this has been an incredible program. Thank you so much, Mark, and thanks to Basil and to all the panelists and participants. It's a huge honor to be in the same room with you and to be talking about these issues. And as I said to Basil, I'm 100% in terms of the direction of these conversations and the work ahead. I think my final point I would like to make is on the issue of technology and innovation. We continue to struggle when we talk about how do we reach the most marginalized? How do we tackle today's, challenges as they are presented in terms of sustainable development goals? And I have found in Bountifield's work that we're struggling on multiple levels, because essentially what we're doing is to create new markets that haven't existed before for the rural poor. And that's not a small feat. And so it's not just about selling a product to a vendor and then getting that going in another country. There are all kinds of nuances around how to do that and how to get buy-in from governments, from investors, and also to think about financing. Financing is the major bottleneck for the introduction of new technology, and whether it's small, medium, or large. And so if our target customer is, a women's group in Malawi, as has been mentioned, how do we make sure that they get the financing and that they see the business opportunity to also invest in the technology and then to take it forward? So some incentivizing needs to happen. A lot of piloting needs to happen. A lot of quick learning and pivoting and not getting too stuck in a one size fits all. This piece of work from my viewpoint is very exciting and gives us the opportunity to be creative, to learn quickly, and to have major impact in this next period. I think that the leaders here from Minnesota have a history of being creative, innovative, and the diaspora community of Africans here, same. So I really welcome more of this. Thank you so much. I want to hear more about the trade mission and whatever we can do to contribute to this kind of partnership and dialogue. Thank you.
Well, thanks to all of you. When Basil and I first started talking about this particular one, I can't remember exactly the circumstance, but one of the things that he said to me was, yeah, we got to get a lot of information out there. We got to connect people. But then he said, but we got to leave people with a lot of hope and desire and inspiration, because it's tough out there. Today, we got incredible information. And I, for one, feel like I got hope, vitamins, inspiration, and energy from all of this good work, and also the dedication and the understanding that we have to be successful so that we can help everybody keep hope alive. Thank you to all for watching. Thank you to our panel. Thank you to Basil and to the board, Minnesota Africans United, who makes this all possible. See you on the first Friday of every month in the morning, and start making your plans for May for getting in on that trade mission. Thanks a lot, everybody. Goodbye now.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Thanks again.
Nice job.
Bye now.